Is she coming?
No.
She's not? I heard that she was. You told me that she was. Is she coming?
Yeah,
Okay, so you coming in here or you going out there?
I'm going out there.
Okay, can you close the door, please?
No,
Close the door, please.
I don't want to go up the door.
Do it anyway. It's my son I'm talking to. Let's get started.
Daddy, come over.
I'm starting my video. You want to help me?
No, yes.
Okay, then close the door.
I want, come over.
I'm recording. I'm recording now, so you either can come in here with me, or if you're going to go out there, you need to close that door and the other door.
No.
Make a decision. You're in between decisions right now. Indecision is one of the 31 major causes of failure. Good morning, everybody. You coming in or not? What you doing?
Yes.
Okay. Can you close that door first? Can you close that door first, then come over here and sit down?
No.
Okay, close the door, and then you come over here with me. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great start to your week. The topic here today, we're going to talk about the alleged, oncoming, inevitable, maybe, question mark, dismantling of the Department of Education. That is the topic here today. Do you want to talk about the Department of Education? Yes. How do you feel about the Department of Education?
Picking up trash.
What?
Picking up trash.
Picking up trash? Actually, that's a good word to describe the Department of Education, but we're going to get into that here today. And we are live. I think all of our platforms are working, at least for now. What's going on, Carla? Good morning over there on YouTube. Can you say good morning to YouTube?
Hi, YouTube.
We are on Rumble and X. Can you say good morning to Rumble?
Hi, hi, Rumble.
And good morning to X.
Hi.
Can you say hi to Facebook?
Hi, Facebook.
Look up here. The camera's up there. See that light? That's the
Yeah.
camera. Say hi, Facebook.
Hi, Facebook.
And hi to LinkedIn.
Hi, LinkedIn.
And can you say hello to Instagram? They're over here.
Hi, Instagram.
And this is TikTok. Say good morning to TikTok.
Hi, TikTok.
Okay, so Department of Education, I think most of you have a general idea of who they are. They're basically a federal body whose job is to make federal laws and rules and regulations and et cetera, about how the educational system is run in the United States of America. So what we're going to talk about here today is we have heard that Donald Trump, he floated this out during his campaign that he might get rid of the Department of Education if he won. He did win. And it looks like, according to what we've seen from Elon Musk and Doge, that they are actually looking into actually doing this, finding a way to dismantle the Department of Education. And some people are up in arms about this. We know one of the main reasons is because it's Donald Trump. And there's a segment of the population who anything Donald Trump does, they're going to find fault with it and make it seem like it's the worst thing to ever happen to society, because they have, you could say some of these people have Trump derangement syndrome, or they just are playing a political game of anything the other side does, we're going to make it look bad. And Donald Trump is a lightning rod for this, so they're just going to keep doing it. We know that's part of it. And then there are people who are mad about Elon Musk because he's looking into the details of what the government is doing. And if he discovers money being spent and going in and out in different places that people are benefiting from, but was not being held, that money was not being held to account properly, which is why the United States government often fails its own financial audits, then that may be stopping some people's money, so they'd be mad for that reason. And some people are mad about Elon Musk, period, because Elon Musk himself was not elected. He was selected by Donald Trump and basically appointed to do the things that he's doing, so people are using that as a reason. And people are mad because they might actually like the Department of Education. There's a small percentage of people who actually like the Department of Education and what they do and what they allegedly represent. That's what we're going to dive into here today. The dismantling of the Department of Education. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? How and why? That's what we're going to talk about here today. So good morning over there, or those of you who are commenting over on TikTok already and on all the other platforms. So Courtney, are you calling me sweetheart, or are you talking to him? I think you're talking to him. But introducing myself, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete, author of 40 books, done 4 TEDx talks. Book 41 is on the way, by the way, as soon as we get the funnel done. Done 4 TEDx talks, create this brand called Work On Your Game. What we do over here is we help professionals in service-based businesses, so it's consultants, lawyers, doctors, people who do any form of coaching, people in the financial space. We help them scale their businesses up through systems and through strategies and systems from 6 figures up to 7 figures. You can learn more about that by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. So getting into this topic, and I'm giving myself a time limit here on how much time I spend on the content, because the last 2 weeks I was spending so much time on the content that these lives were going a little bit longer than they need to go. So I'm going to give myself a limit of an hour of content. The clock is already running. As you can see, you can get this clock. I got this clock from Amazon, and it costs about like $30, and you can turn it to different numbers on the sides. I won't turn it because then I'm gonna lose my count, but you could turn it on each side. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4. What's this called? What's this shape called?
Circle.
Looks like a circle. It's actually a hexagon. A hexagon because it has 6 sides.
Yeah.
So it's hexagonical, if that's a word, however you say it. It has 6 sides. So whichever side you turn it to, it has 60 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So I got it on 60 minutes. We're already counting down to make sure I don't go over time. Then we leave time for Q&A and audience engagement. All that said, let's get into it. Number 1 point, we're talking about the dismantling of the Department of Education. I'm looking at how many points I have so I can gauge. I can basically pace myself how much time I'm spend on each point. Education is not in the United States Constitution. It is not in the Constitution, which doesn't mean that people shouldn't be educated. What it means is that the educational system in the United States of America is not explicitly a federal responsibility. All the Department of Education is, again, for those who don't understand, it's a federal organization that basically regulates how education goes in the United States. The thing is, if there were no Department of Education, we would still have education. It's just that each state, Alabama would have their department. Every state already has a Department of Education. So Florida has theirs, Alabama has theirs, Pennsylvania has theirs, Iowa has theirs, and they would just run things as they see fit in each state. If the Department of Education, actually, let me back up. They already do this. Every state already does education the way that they want to do it. What happens is each state has to not only follow its own rules, but anything that the federal department puts down to them, they have to follow that. And then within that framework, they can do what they want to do state-wise. So if there were no Department of Education, it's not like there would be no education. So a lot of people on X, I've seen them talking about this. Well, Trump's going to get rid of the Department of Education. So that means people are going to be dumb and people won't be educated, and it's going to make it worse for this kid and that kid, and we're just going to be more dumb as a country than we already are, because we already have to be dumb, because how did Trump get elected? According to the sarcasm that some people are throwing out there, and some people really truly believe this. So let's move on to the next point. The 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution says that any power that is not granted to the federal government, that power then by default, and I'm paraphrasing, it is now sent to the state level. This is the reason why our country is called the United States of America. It's not the United Federal Government telling you what to do. It's called the United States. So each state gets to make their each state gets to make their own decisions about what to do and how to do it if the federal government is not overtopping them. And one of the reasons why the government was designed to be what it was is because the founding fathers understood that when a government gets too big, it has too much power and gets too ambitious, it can become tyrannical, and it can start basically dictating the lives of the people. And the founding fathers wanted to design the government in such a way that that was not possible. That's why we have a system of checks and balances. That's the reason why anything that is not federally controlled is controlled by each state making its own decision. Even though we are all united and come together for certain decisions, each state gets to make their own choices as to how they do things, which is why in certain states there was a certain way they dealt with the virus a couple of years ago. In each state, there's a different way that they do when it comes to education. Like down here in the state of Florida, where I live, our governor, Ron DeSantis, who I mostly like, he has been strongly against any type of, what words would I use? I guess you could say DeSantis is anti-woke. I guess you could say that. He is anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that's fair enough as well. And he has been against, like, there are certain books that preach certain things and ideologies that Ron DeSantis has been against. And he has pushed his Department of Education to basically make sure those things don't go into what happens in the state. And I like that better. I like it better to do it that way, where each state makes their own decision rather than having the federal government make a decision, because then at least at least you have 50 different choices about where you might want to live or move, etc., based on how the educational system is, as opposed to having no choice and there's only one option because the federal government is deciding everything for every state. So as long as you plan on living in the United States, at least if it's a state by state thing, you can choose, okay, I don't like what's happening in New York, so I'm going to go over to Ohio, or I don't like Ohio, so I'm going to go to Indiana, or I don't like Indiana, so I'm going to go to Michigan. At least you have some choices somewhat in that space. And you saw a lot of people, I don't know if there's any people listening to this or anyone you know who has ever literally moved from one state to another based on the educational system. I haven't heard of it, but I'm sure it's happened. But I can definitely tell you there's a bunch of people who moved during the virus 5 years ago based on how things were going, how the virus was being handled. A lot of New Yorkers came to South Florida. A lot of Californians came to either South Florida or to Tennessee or to Texas because they didn't like how things were going in in New York or in California. So people do move based on and I'm sure there were other factors, but that was probably the factor that pushed a lot of people over the hump during that time period. But I am more a fan of this, each state getting to choose their own system than having it federally mandated. And as I've said many times, you've been following my live streams, I'm not a fan of the federal government having too much oversight and overreach over things that each state does, just for the fact that once they make one decision that applies to everybody, why not make the decision to let every state make their own choice? Why not? That's the reason why we have governors. That's the reason why we have state level elections. So any of you who does, or you know someone who always talks about politics, and you hear people say this every election cycle, that people get all excited about the president and the vice president, maybe even about Congress, when the real action, all of you should understand this because it's true, the real action that is going to happen in your life and the real things that are going to make a big difference in your everyday activities are the elections that happen at your state level and your local level. Local meaning in your city. Those are the areas, or even in your district, where you're voting for who's going to represent your district in the local government, the governor, who is the judges. Those things at the state level are the things that really affect people on an everyday basis. But most Americans tend to focus a lot more and get a lot more excited about what's happening at the federal level. But if you think about it, if at the federal level we stop letting the federal government have so much say in how things go, and instead everything is based on the state level, then the federal government will actually have less control. And to be honest about it, you look at the two candidates we had during the last election cycle. You had Donald Trump, who is with the Republican Party, and Donald Trump was all about, we want to reduce the amount of oversight that the federal government has, which is not you would think a lot of politicians will want to increase it, because the more overreach the federal government has, the more power that person has. Such as, generally, I would say over the last 25 years, in my experience, generally that's been, let's not say the last 25, let's say the last 15. So from Barack Obama on, I've seen that the politicians on the left, the Democrats, have wanted to have things be more federally controlled, to where they, or this person, the president, has a lot more say in what happens, because if things are federally controlled, then the president you got to listen to what they say, because they're controlling how everything goes. Whereas on the Republican side, the only Republican we've had in the last 15 years has been Donald Trump, right? Is he the only Republican we've had since 2010? Yeah, he's the only one. The only Republican we had has been Donald Trump. Now, he is an anomaly. He's not a normal politician. And he has been more about, I want the states to control things. So you saw he did it with the virus. He said, I'm not going to make a federal mandate for how we have to handle it. I'm going to let each state decide, do you have to put on a mask, or do you have to get the jab, and all those things. And I appreciate him for doing that, because, again, I live in a state with a governor who said, we are not mandating those things, and we're going to let you have your freedom. This is the reason why so many people came to Florida during that time period, in addition to other reasons, such as our beautiful weather, which is the best in the United States of America, if you ask me or any of you. And right now he's talking about, let's get rid of the Department of Education. Now, again, Trump often throws things out there that he doesn't really mean, just to get people talking. He stirs it up and he controls the news cycle by doing this. But at the same time, looks like he might be serious about this, and he may actually do it. And I believe this is a good thing, just for the reason that it, again, allows every state and the governor who you voted for, the governor of your state, to decide how we're going to do things statewide. Or the governor, of course, trickling down to the other people whose names you may not know, who run your local departments of education, et cetera, et cetera. I'd rather get to choose who my governor is, because it's just the people in this state who get to vote on that, than the president, who we got to deal with everybody in the country and everybody's opinion, and let them decide how we're going to do things. Are you mimicking my movements? You're noticing me? Okay. So I am generally a fan of anything getting away from federal power and going to local power, generally on whatever it is. Number 3, we're talking here today, for those who came in late, we're talking about the dismantling of the Department of Education, the alleged dismantling, maybe impending dismantling of the Department of Education by Donald Trump via his guy Elon Musk. Number 3, decentralization of the educational system. And this applies to any aspect, and we're not just talking about education here, but this gives each state more flexibility to determine their policies and what their specific constituents want to do, rather than having to follow federal mandates, which are already explained. The usual bureaucratic and inefficient federal overreach is the thing that I think Donald Trump has been strongly against this for a while, as you can see. And actually, I didn't finish my point that I was making earlier. When you look at the 2 candidates for the 2024 election, a lot of what Donald Trump talked about, he's actually doing. And he talked about it even the first time around, when he wasn't able to do so much of it because he didn't know what he didn't know. He knows a lot better this time, was reducing the federal government's overreach and the federal government's involvement in the decisions of everyday people, which again, I can't say I'd never, but I don't quite understand why any American citizen would want the federal government to be making more rules and more laws and having more oversight over what we do, as opposed to your local state making that same decision. Why you need the federal government to do it? Why not just have your state do it? What's the difference? I don't quite understand this. Why people will want this. And you juxtapose Trump with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris's approach, if you listen to the things that she was saying, a lot of the things that Kamala was talking about, damn near everything she was talking about, was about giving the federal government, or having the federal government have more oversight, more overreach over what every state is allowed to do or is not allowed to do. She was trying to have the federal government consolidate even more power and more say over everything that happens in America, whereas Donald Trump was doing the exact opposite. I want the federal government to have less say, because again, look at what he did during the virus. So you can see through his actions. He said, no, we're not going to make a decision as a federal government. We're going to let each state decide what they want to do. And some people tried to use that against him, but I think it was a very strong point. And also, same thing here with the Department of Education. If he actually does it, we'll see if he actually does it, and letting every state make the decision. Whereas Kamala Harris was more about, we want to make these things federal. So, their whole thing was about Roe v. Wade. They wanted to bring that back, and they wanted to reinstate it, and they wanted to make it a federal mandate. Not a fan of that. Joe Biden, during his time as president, was also looking to just expand more of the powers of the overall federal government. Barack Obama did the exact same thing. Now, the question is, why do these people want to do this as opposed to Trump? Now, again, Donald Trump is an anomaly of a politician, because he's not actually a politician. And if you want to see a Republican who kind of fit the description, the same thing I'm saying about Harris, Biden, Obama, look at the previous Republican president, George W. Bush. He was more about the federal overreach as well. I think this has generally been a politician thing, is not a Democrat-Republican thing. I'm saying left and right because Donald Trump is, again, very different than most politicians. George W. Bush, how many things did he make federal? A whole lot of things. Remember No Child Left Behind? That was a George W. Bush initiative. How'd that go? As far as I'm concerned, not too well. You remember the TSA? What does the TSA stand for? Travel Safety Administration? Is that what they stand for? The TSA? I'm not a fan of the TSA. I don't like. Well, I have clear, so I usually don't have to deal with TSA too much. But I don't like the fact that TSA even exists, and standing in the lines and people being all rude, and they talk to you when you go through TSA. If you go through the normal lines, again, I don't go through the normal lines anymore, but when you went through TSA during the normal lines, or any of you who still do, they talk to you like you're entering, like you're getting checked into jail. Isn't that how they talk to you? The people who are standing there, depending on which airport you're at, and depending on what time of day you fly. I would suggest to all of you, you're going to either fly late at night, super late at night, like a midnight flight, or early in the morning. Early in the morning, they tend to be nicer because they haven't had a whole day of aggravation yet. And that applies also to going to the bank, going to the post office. You either go early in the morning, first thing in the morning. People usually have good attitudes because they haven't been aggravated by dealing with customers all day. Just as a little tip. But I'm not a fan of the TSA. That came into being after 9/11 because of President George W. Bush. And that was supported by a whole lot of people. So let's not just put it on him. That was supported by a lot of folks. The reason why I believe someone like Kamala Harris and someone like Joe Biden, and we just isolated them, want the government to have more federal overreach and oversight over what happens, is because look at them. Look who they are. Look who Kamala Harris is. She's a lifetime politician. So if she was to support what Donald Trump is supporting, which is less federal government oversight and overreach, then what significance does a person like her have because what else is she bringing to the table besides being a bureaucrat, besides being a politician? She's not really bringing anything else to the table. So if she works to reduce the amount of oversight that the federal government has, and she is in the federal government, then again, who is she? Now, you may ask, then what about Donald Trump? Well, the thing is, Donald Trump was somebody before he got into politics. Who was Kamala Harris before she got into politics? None of you knew who she was. We knew who Donald Trump was. So he doesn't need the federal government to have more power for him to be a significant person, whether he was president or not. Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or even Barack Obama, and I've said this about a whole bunch of politicians. We can go back to Bill Clinton. We can go back to W. Bush. We can go back to H.W. Bush. We can go back to, I didn't know too much about Reagan. Let's just go back that far. Most of these people without politics, they have no significance because they haven't done anything other than politics. And this is the reason why Trump is an anomaly. He's different because he doesn't need the federal government to be significant as a person, whereas all of them do. And I think this plays a role in them wanting to have the federal government have more overreach over what's happening. And Kamala was pretty adamant about this. The thing about Kamala, and I've said this over and over again, and is the reason why she is not going to be the candidate in 2028. She might try, but she's not going to win, is because is that Kamala Harris seems to not be very strong on what exactly is she about. She didn't really seem to have a strong form. Who is she? What is she about? What is she actually standing on? What are her principles? And I believe there are some people in the Democratic Party who do stand on things and they do have clear principles. Not that you agree with them, but I do believe they have clear principles. I believe AOC has some clear things she's standing on. I believe Bernie Sanders has some clear things that he's standing on. Again, I'm not saying you need to agree with them, but are you ever unclear? I think we're very clear. I think you're very clear on what Donald Trump stands for. Even Barack Obama, he could be kind of reptilian with some of his language, but you were pretty clear where he was at. He didn't mislead you for the most part. Every politician has a lie, but for the most part, he was telling you where he was at. Kamala Harris, I was never quite sure. And I think a lot of people who wanted to vote for her, even her supporters, were never quite sure exactly where she stood. And I think that played a big role in why her message wasn't landing the way she wanted it to. Anyway, back to where I was at. We're talking about the Department of Education here. The No Child Left Behind initiative by George W. Bush. How'd that do? All right, how's y'all feel about No Child Left Behind? How'd y'all feel about the No Child Left Behind thing by George W. Bush? I mean, it had positive intentions. As a general idea, the positive intention was we don't want to leave kids behind. So if a kid's not doing well in school, we need to come up with some type of process or system that doesn't leave them behind and doesn't stigmatize them and kind of keeps them in a positive space. I was never a big fan of the initiative. I didn't know all. No, I'm recording. Let me see, I'm recording right now. You want to sit up here?
No.
Okay, here, take your ball. So I was never a big fan of the initiative. And again, it was a federal thing. Again, not a big fan of that. Then you had things like Common Core, which I don't know as much about, but both examples of what eventually became failed interventions. That's what they were. And the reason why they failed is the reason why we don't like federal mandates of anything is because, I see you over there, Zori, on Instagram, is that they're one-size-fits-all solutions. And that just doesn't work. One size fits. I need more water. One size fits all solutions generally do not work, and the reason they don't work often don't work on a lower scale, let alone do they work on a federal scale, is because just think about that. If you take a one size fits all solution and say it applies to all 330 million Americans, what's the chances that that's going to fit well on most people? The chances are relatively low because most people just simply don't fit a one size fits all standard. So if you were to take that and apply it at the state level, at least you get 50 different states with different sizes. You got 50 different sizes to choose from, if you understand my metaphor, if you make it a state level thing. But if you make it a federal thing, you got one size and everybody has to fit into that one size. This is the reason why when it comes to the educational system, I've often trashed and railed against the standardized testing process. And not because standardized tests can't measure something. The issue with standardized tests is that human beings are not all standard. So anyone who does not learn in such a way or is not able to disseminate their knowledge in such a way that fits what a standardized test requires, the standardized test is going to make it look like you are not that smart or you're not that intelligent or you're not that well equipped to perform in school. So if you get a bad grade on the standardized test, you may have a ton of potential, but the standardized test says you don't. So then you end up in a worse position just because everyone has to fit this standard on this test. I don't like the concept. And I did pretty well on my standardized test. Back then it was the SATs. They still do the SATs these days. I think I heard they changed the scoring system. But a test like that, the only people who do well in it are people who are trained to do well on standardized testing. And those are also the people who do well in school. They do well in a standardized system of school. Not everybody is fit to sit in the classroom for 6 to 8 hours a day, folding your hands and patiently listening to a teacher and taking notes and not getting distracted, and then regurgitating back what the teacher told you and what the book said in such a way that satisfies this standard that you're a good student. The people who do really well at that, those are the people who become your often these people can become your lawyers, they become your doctors, they become your college professors, and they become your politicians. Why? Because they're really good at following a structure. All of those industries are based on strict structure. And if you're good at following structure from 5 years old, you'll probably be good at it when you're 35. And that's how you get into a job that is highly structured and can keep you moving forward as long as you follow the process. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. We need lawyers, we need doctors, we need teachers, we need, what's the other one I said? We don't need politicians, but we have them. Let's just say that. The issue is the only way the world moves forward, the only way we get advancement in civilization is not from the people who are following structures. We get advancement in civilization from people who go outside the structure and have a different way of looking at things and were not validated and affirmed by the system because they did not follow the process of the system, at least not to a T. So these are your C students and your dropouts. Those are the people who don't follow the structure perfectly and they go a completely different route. Those are your innovators. Those are your entrepreneurs. Those are your inventors. The world moves forward because of those people. And the thing that those people come up with create spaces where the people who are good at following process can just plug themselves in and do the work. All right, those people become the workers, and generally some people call them the producers, but the ones who create the opportunity for them to produce are the ones who don't do so well in a structured system. So there's a space for both. It's not saying that one side is bad and one side is good. Because if you're an innovator or an inventor or an entrepreneur, those of you who are listening to this, the only way your thing can really get out to the masses of people and serve all the people you needed to serve is that you need some of those people who were the A students to come work in your system and keep it running because they're looking for a process to follow. That's what they've done their entire lives. So you need those people in the same way that they need you, because if you don't invent anything, they have nowhere to work. So it's a positive on both sides. It's just a matter of what side are you on. The issue that I have with the entire system is that the system is designed, I believe, at least it was like this when I was in school. Now, I graduated from college in 2004. So I had not been in the educational system for a while. And you saw my child, he's not old enough to be in school yet. I'm probably going to homeschool him anyway. But I hope it's changed somewhat. Some of you can let me know in the comments if it has. But the way the system was, at least when I was in school, elementary all the way up through college, was that any student who didn't do well through the standardized system there was a stigma put on you that there was something wrong with you, that you're not following the system, you're not getting as good grades, you would end up on something like academic probation, or you would have your parents called up to the school or they send you to the counselor's office because you weren't following the system as cleanly as other people were following the system. Whereas the reality is, people who are not that great at following the system, it doesn't mean that they lack intelligence, intellect, or potential. It's simply that they learn in a different way. And there's a lot of different ways to learn besides sitting in a room for an hour straight listening to somebody lecture. There's a lot of different ways to learn things in life, such as hands-on activities. And the educational system in America is so rigid that even though there have been slight changes over the years, it hasn't completely changed, and it's not going to completely change as long as we have these entities in place, such as the two biggest ones are the Department of Education and the Teachers Union. The Teachers Union is the other one that hasn't gone away, and they're going to fight. For those of you who know how the Teachers Union works, let's just keep it really simple. They have a lot of money, and most teachers who work in public schools are members of that union, and that union is designed to keep to fight against charter schools, and it's to keep teachers employed. And the only way teachers stay employed is that there need to be public schools, and kids need to be going to those schools. Because if kids aren't going to the public schools, i.e. they start going to charter schools, there'll be fewer kids in public schools, which means there'll be fewer public schools open, which means some of the teachers who work in those schools are going to lose their jobs. And the teachers union really doesn't want their union members to lose their jobs. So it becomes this battle here where a lot of parents will probably rather send their kids to a charter school or a private school if they could afford it. The problem is, public schools and the union, it's not the schools, the teachers union who employs the employees or not employees, but defends the employees of public schools. They are going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that charter schools cannot become direct competition to them, because it means some of their members are going to lose their jobs. Now, is the teachers union doing this out of some kindness of their heart or benevolence? No, they're doing it because the more members they have in their union, the more union dues they collect. And this is all about money. Follow the money. Anytime you want to understand why something is happening, even if it seems to not be about money, just follow the money and you'll understand why it's happening. This whole argument about the Department of Education is not about education. It's not about intellect. It is not about our next generation of adults who are going to be the inventors and the workers of the world. That's what people tell you. That's what the politicians tell you. That's not what it's about. It is about money. It's always about money. And that's the real battle that's happening right now. And I would bet, I haven't dug into this, but I would bet that the teachers union right now, the federal teachers union, is digging in really deeply and calling their lawyers and getting ready for a fight to try to defend the Department of Education, because the Department of Education is in support. They support the teachers union. The teachers union supports them, and anybody goes against either one of them, the other one calls in and comes to help. So this is going to be a battle. It's not going to be an easy thing, and there's going to be a whole lot of noise over this the entire time. So my next point is this: the Department of Education budget has been over $80 billion, not million with an M, but billion with a B. $80 billion per year. And let me ask, where's that money going? $80 billion. So imagine you had a budget of $80 billion. What would you do? What would you accomplish that you're not accomplishing right now if you had a budget of $80 billion with a B? $80 billion a year, but improvement and performance, is it close to proportional of that type of budget? Does the Department of Education and what it produces, does it seem like it's using $80 billion a year in its budget? I would say no. Some people may say yes. I would say generally no. So the change that would happen here, if the Department of Education no longer has this federal oversight, states can keep more of their own tax revenue, and they can use that money now to allocate it directly to schools as they wish. So they can take the tax revenue they're taking in. They don't have to funnel it up to the federal government and the Department of Education. Now they can keep it, and they can decide, here's what we're going to do with the money. Now you may say, well, what if my state is dumb with money? What if I don't like the governor? What if I don't like the way they've been using money in Georgia? Or I don't like the way they've been using money in Arizona or Oregon? What should I do? Well, what you should do is find out who's running in the next election and get involved. That's what you should do. You should go talk to your district, whoever's representing your district or your city or your town or wherever you live, and find out, how do I get involved? Who's the person that I should vote for? Who's going to help with this? Who's going to help with that? The good news about the government, now, there's not a lot of good news about it, but one good piece of news about the government, local and federal, is that almost everything they do is documented. The thing is, it's sometimes couched in so much legalese and so many pages and so many words that most people won't take the time to look through it. But the material is generally documented. So you can find out what's going on if you want to find out what's going on. And someone like Elon Musk, you can follow Doge, D-O-G-E, on X, and they're telling you the things that they're doing. Now, they're getting their pushback every time they announce something, but look at it and draw your own conclusions. Think for yourself. What's happening? Next point. There is an argument that the dismantling of the Department of Education can encourage competition with expansions of charter schools, with vouchers, and more private education options. Is that argument legit? Absolutely it is, because how many of you have a child who goes to a public school and you really don't have much of an option of sending them somewhere else? And if you did, you would. How many of you are in that situation? Put me in the chat if you have or had, past tense, a child who was going to a public school and you would have sent them to a different school if there was an option, but based on where you lived and the situation, you really didn't have the option of sending them elsewhere. And any of you who's been in this situation, there are a lot of people in this situation. I see some of you in the comments there. Brandon, I see you. 2 Brandons. I see you with that comment. The thing is, a lot of parents, all parents want is just a choice. Just that. Parents just want a choice. So I see a bunch of you saying that me. Parents just want to know. I'll give you an example. When I was a child, I went to the local elementary school, and then there was a local middle school. So my mom grew up in the same neighborhood that she raised her kids in. And she had went to the local elementary school. I think she did. I don't know if she did. But I know she went to the local middle school. And the local middle school was known as a not good school. It had a reputation of not being a good school. And my mom would always say to us, my sister and I, growing up, you two are not going to that middle school. I don't know where you're going to go, but you're not going to that middle school. She was adamant, my kids ain't going to that middle school. So when we got out of elementary school, my sister's older than me. When we got out of elementary school, my mom got us into what they call a magnet school. Y'all have those everywhere in America as a magnet school. It's a school that you don't have to live in that neighborhood to go there. And it's allegedly a school it has a reputation of being a school for the quote unquote smart kids or the kids with the best grades. They get to go to that school, even though it's not in their neighborhood. So usually you go to your neighborhood school, but if you get into a magnet school, you don't have to live in the neighborhood to go to the school. So we got into the magnet middle school, and I think a big part of us getting into that school, actually a big part, at that point, I think we both had pretty good grades in elementary school. So my sister was really good. She became a college professor. I was good. I wasn't really good. I was good, at least in elementary school. So we got into the magnet middle school. And the point being that parents just want choices. Parents don't want to have to send their kid to a school that they really are not fond of simply because it's the only one in the neighborhood and the rules say so. And you apply for a charter school, but then you don't win the lottery, because that's how charter schools work, is that there may be 100 spots open for kids to go to this charter school in the 6th grade for next year. And 1,000 parents apply for the charter school lottery, but out of the 1,000 who apply, only 100 get in. So then 900 kids who want to go to the charter school can't go to the charter school. So now they're stuck. Either A, go to a public school that your parents don't want to send you to, or B, you go to a private school. The thing is, private schools cost money. And a lot of parents may not have the money to send their kids to a private school. So now you really don't have a choice. You're forced into sending your kids somewhere that you don't want to send your kid. And I don't think that should be happening in the United States of America. We're allegedly the richest country in the world. And if we're not the richest, we're in the top 3 of richest countries in the world. How is it that parents don't even have a choice of where to send their kids to school when there's all these people who are willing to teach? That doesn't make any sense. And this is my issue with the teachers union. And my mom's a member of the teachers union. And I still have an issue with the teachers union because their whole thing is just holding on to their power, and holding on to their power means keeping their members employed. And that means keeping public schools dominant to where parents don't have a choice between a public school and something else. If we opened it up to competition, then we will find out who's the best. And I want to remind you all, or inform you if you don't know who I am, where I come from. I come from the sports world where the best man wins and the best team wins because it's open competition. If you can play, you show up to the park or the field or the court or the track or the pool, and we find out who the best is. That's how it should be with education. Why are we forcing kids to go to schools when the parents don't even want them to go there? Let's send them to this school and let's see what school is better. Whichever one's performing better, then they should be able to do what they do. Another issue with charter schools is that often a charter school operates inside of the building that a public school uses. So any of you knows anything about charter schools, there's a whole book. Thomas Sowell wrote this book called Charter Schools and Their Enemies. Anybody read that book? Put charter in the comments. Any of you read the book? Some of you may not have even heard of it, but it's called Charter Schools and Their Enemies. And the way charter schools often set up, is not always, but often what they do is they lease space inside of the same building as a public school. So it's like 2 schools happening in the same actual building. And all they do is lease the space from the public school's building. And what happens is when public schools they want to fight against charter schools, they will refuse to lease space to that school, or they'll have a building that they don't even use anymore. So for example, I just told you a couple of minutes ago how there was a neighborhood middle school where I grew up, and my mom said, y'all are not going to that school. That school is not open anymore. They shut the school down. Last time I was in Philly, I drove past it and I saw it was all shut down. I asked my mom, she's like, yeah, they shut the school down. That building's just sitting there doing nothing. A charter school could, for example, go to whoever owns that building and owns the land and says, hey, we want to open our charter school in that building. Let us just pay you for use of the building. A public school, and this happens, a public school who owns that building or whoever controls it, they will say to the charter school, no, we will not let you lease space in that building, even though they're not doing anything with it. The building's just sitting there collecting dust. It's like if somebody owns a house and they're trying to rent it out, and then you gotta try to rent the house and they say, no, I won't rent to you. Even though you're willing to pay the rent, you're willing to give them first class and security up front. You'll pay the whole year of rent up front. They still won't lease it to you. That's what the public schools often do to charter schools because they're trying to not let charter schools get any momentum. Because if charter schools get momentum and they are proven to outperform the public school, then more parents are going to say, oh, well, why am I sending them to a public school? I can send them one of these. And now there are going to be fewer kids in public schools. And what happens is that school shuts down. And then what happens is those teachers, part of the union, no longer have a job. So again, follow the money. You'll understand how all this works. And the issue here is not even necessarily about one being good and bad. It's about competition. It's about competition. When you allow competition in the market, then the cream rises to the top. The best performer is going to show itself. That's the reason why you want competition and why entities that tend to be entrenched in a place and they they want to hold on to their power, they will do everything in their power to block the competition from happening. You want an example of this? Look at RFK when he was trying to get on, because RFK was trying to run for the Democratic nomination in 2024, right? But they kind of weren't letting him do it. He did a whole bunch of interviews explaining, hey, they are kind of stifling me and not letting me get into this competition. Now, if he was going to win or not, we don't know. We'll never know because he never got a chance to run. The thing is, they were stopping him from even getting in. And there are many questions people have asked over the years about Bernie's run in 2016 and his run in 2020, because people who are entrenched in power wanted to hold on to their power, and they wanted to block any competition from happening. The issue is, not the issue, but the reality is when you open things up to competition, we find out who the best is. And often, this is often the case, the incumbent who has had a monopoly doesn't want the competition because they can look at what the competition is doing and say, damn, if we actually compete with them, they're going to destroy us. You want to see an example of this in real life? Look at the taxi industry when Uber and Lyft came into the market. Do y'all even remember the taxis and cabs? They still exist. There's still a bunch of them out there. When you go to the airport, you usually see taxis and cabs. Not as many as you used to, but they still exist. And here's the reason why this happens. Because when you're the incumbent and you have a monopoly, your competition, everybody can see you. Everything you're doing is out in the open. So all the competition has to do is look at you, look at everything that you're not doing, and just figure out how do we do it. How do we do the stuff they're not doing, we can beat them. And that's pretty much how it works. So Uber and Lyft said, okay, what do people not like about taxis? Let's solve that. And they can beat them. We can beat them easily. So in many cities, especially in a city like New York, for example, that the taxi companies fought really, really hard to block Uber and Lyft from getting into town. Y'all remember this? If y'all remember, maybe about 10 to 15 years ago, there were some towns where you could not get an Uber. You could not get a Lyft. If you got off a plane, walked outside of the airport, you could not get an Uber or a Lyft, or it would say something like, you can get the Uber or Lyft, but you can't get it on airport grounds. You got to walk 200 yards off airport grounds, and then you can get the Lyft. You can't get it actually at the airport because the taxi and cab companies were fighting to block it until the support and the demand for Uber and Lyft became so overwhelming that they had to fall back. That's what's going to happen when it comes to the educational system as well. Continuing. State level control means no more political or ideological agendas, at least through Washington, D.C., getting pushed to you and your kids' educational system. So whatever the federal government is pushing, such as BLM or DEI or the rainbow flag, if they're pushing that and they decide to apply that to education, they make a call to the Department of Education. The Department of Education puts a call out to all 50 state departments, and they have to follow it because the Department of Education tells them what they can and can't do. But if you remove the Department of Education's oversight, now each state can decide what they want to do. So if one state wants to promote BLM, okay, that's what they voted for. You live there. If you don't like it, vote against it. One state wants to promote DEI, okay, they voted for it. One state wants to say no, okay, that's what they voted for. Or they or you, if that's the state that you live in. So again, at least it gives you 50 choices instead of having no choice. And again, why would anybody be against this? Generally, I don't see why people would be against this. And in this sense, in this case, your local politicians start mattering more than your federal politicians. Thank you, Angie, for the lightning bolts. And everybody else who's been giving gifts over here on TikTok while I'm talking. Education can be more aligned with local values rather than a national standard, because I think we all can agree. Any of you who lives in what they call the flyover states, I think you all can agree, if you live in one of those states, that some of the things that you see coming out of the coastal states, you are not aligned with these ideologies. Therefore, why should the ideologies of a coastal state, let's say California, have the same rules as a state like Iowa or Nebraska? Right? The people in those places think completely differently. Why are we all operating by one rule? It doesn't make sense. Again, we're called the United States for a reason. Iowa should have their rules. California can have their rules. And if you like California's rules, okay, live in California. You like Iowa's rules, then you keep living in Iowa. But why should we all operate by the same rules? It doesn't make any sense. So let's get to some counter arguments. States with less money may struggle to do as well as other states with more funds. So we're talking about the Department of Education possible dismantling here. And now I'm giving you the counterpoints to what some people may say if they are a supporter of the continuance of the Department of Education's existence, is that not every state has the same amount of money. So we can agree that a state like Mississippi does not have the same amount of money as a state like New York or California or Texas. Therefore, the kids in Mississippi are not afforded the same opportunities for a high-level education as they would be if they lived in California or New York. The way that this is currently somewhat balanced out is because the Department of Education is able to allocate resources to each state according to their need. But if we were to remove the Department of Education, now each state is on their own. So a state that is financially poor, like let's say Mississippi, now they're going to be in an even worse situation. And often a state is poor, the people are often poor, and the people there can't afford to just pick up and, okay, we're going to just move to California. We're going to go move to Texas, where the cost of living may be twice as high as it is here. So it creates a somewhat of an unfair situation. This is a legitimate point. And again, as a critical thinker, you must be able to argue multiple sides of a conversation. Even though, personally, and I'll tell you my response to this, because this is a legitimate point and it needs to be brought up. And if the Department of Education gets destroyed, this will be a legitimate issue for states that do not have as much money. And they're going to have to figure out a response to this. They're going to have to figure out an answer for this. And my answer to it is the following. And this answer is also the reason why I'm not a politician, is that even though this is true, I am still in favor of dismantling the federal oversight, and I'm willing to accept the trade-off that some states may find themselves in what appears to be an even worse situation as a result of that decision. And the fact of the matter is, people who voted for me, that there are no perfect scenarios in life. There are only trade-offs. Everything has a trade-off. And one of the trade-offs of us removing federal overreach when it comes to education is that a state that already doesn't have a whole lot of money might be in a worse situation. That's the trade-off that we are willing to accept. Now, again, I cannot be a politician because you could never say something like that as a politician, what I just said, even though what I said is 100% true. You can't say that in politics because your opponents will use that against you and hammer you, and your career will pretty much be over. You will lose your next election, and whoever donated money to your last campaign will not donate money to your next campaign because you have just stained your name and nobody wants to stand next to you because you said something so callous like what I just said. But it doesn't mean it's not true. It is true. That's what it is. The trade-off is some places might end up in a worse situation. There's not like I can make that sound like it's not a bad thing or not a good thing. What I would say to the people in the state that don't have a lot of money in such a situation is that your state department's educational budget is not the determinant factor in how good of an education your children get. The determinant factor is what kind of home situation do your children have, i.e., do you have two parents at home? If you got two parents at home, your kid's going to be fine. And if you have one parent at home, I can send them to the best school in the world. Your kid might still end up screwed up. It's the parenting and home situation that determines how a young man or young woman ends up as an adult, more than the type of school they go to or the quality of the teacher or whatever they get on the SAT. That's the actual determinant factor. And again, the problem with this, if I was to say something like this, is you're holding people accountable, and holding people accountable does not work very well in politics. In case any of you didn't know, the only time it works to hold people accountable in politics is when you're doing it on social media and making it seem like you're calling out your political opponent. But we all know that that's just theater. But actually, me as a politician, if I was to become the mayor of Miami, for example, or I represent some district in Florida, and I was to get my first speech after I win and start holding people and telling the voters, hey, you all got to raise your kids. We need two parents at home. You need to teach your kids home training, so when they go out into the world, they're not acting like they don't have any sense. So we don't have to call the cops, because by the time your kids get to a situation where they're engaging with police officers, somebody's already messed up at home, mom and dad. See, if I was to say something like that, a lot of voters would not be too happy with me, and I probably would not win my next election. Holding people accountable is not a winning strategy if you're trying to influence the masses of people. You can influence a small group of people by holding them accountable, but not the masses of people. And it's the reason why no politician ever tells you these kind of things. Barack Obama, for example, had a speech. Some of you may remember this. I don't remember exactly what year it was or who he was talking to, but he gave a speech where he touched on these things that I just talked about. Two-parent homes, raising our kids the right way. We need to get back to traditional family values. And he touched on it one time in his 8 years as president. He said something like that in his speech. And some people still recall him saying it. He didn't say it ever before that, and he didn't say it ever again, because maybe he was just feeling it that particular day. But you can't talk like that too often, especially at the federal level, and be successful. You can't do it because you would piss off too many people by holding them accountable. Most people don't want to be held accountable. So some of you listening to this, you might think that's crazy. If you really think about it, it's not crazy. All right, think about all the people you've gone to school with, worked with, and grew up with. How many of them are open to being held accountable? Now that you think about that, now it makes sense, right? All right, next point. We got a couple more here, and then we'll open it up to our conversation. The Department of Education, this is another counterpoint for why the DOE should maybe stay. It guarantees protection for students who may be disabled, low income, any kind of civil rights enforcement, and just having federal oversight to make sure that schools do certain things that you may want to be federally enforced because, hey, there are certain rules, and this is, again, a legitimate point. There are certain rules that you don't want there to be different rules in each state. There are certain rules that you just want to be applied to everybody in the United States, such as every student deserves this. Every student should have this. So, for example, people are talking about school lunches, right? Every kid should be able to eat lunch or eat breakfast or at least get a couple meals while they're in school, even if they don't have money at home to eat food. And some people may say, hey, I'd rather that be a federal law than let each state decide. So one state, you can go to Minnesota and your kid can get food every day. But if you go to what's another state? I'm running out of states. You go to Kansas, then they can't get food every day. What's the difference? I mean, do kids deserve to eat in Minnesota? They don't deserve to eat in Kansas. Why not just make one rule to make sure everybody gets it? And I'm using that as a general example. I'm not saying that that's exactly how it works. The point is, there are some things that some people would say it's better if it's just a federal law that applies to everybody rather than letting each state decide if they want to do it or not. My counter to that counter is I disagree. I'd rather it be state level and each state decide what they want to do. But I can't say that somebody who wants it to be a federal thing is wrong. I can't say that they're wrong. I disagree with them, but it doesn't necessarily make them wrong. There's a solid argument on both sides. Next point. A fragmentation of the educational system could create wildly inconsistent outcomes between different students in different locations. This is also a legitimate point. So, again, if every state gets to make their own rules for exactly how they want to do things education-wise, you might get a whole bunch of geniuses coming out of New Jersey and a whole bunch of idiots coming out of Maryland. All right, how is that possible? They're all in the same country, and they may be operating off a pretty similar system, but because New Jersey has these rules and Maryland has these rules, you get all the smart kids coming out of Jersey and all these dumb kids are coming out of Maryland. How is that? Why is that okay? Why is that acceptable? Some people will make this argument, and you can't tell them that they're wrong because they're not wrong. That is a legitimate theory. It's not like it's actually happened. It's a legitimate theory, and it could occur. What I would say to that is, again, putting my politician hat on again, that would get me out of a political career very quickly, is that this is the trade-off that we accept. If you live in a state where they or you voted for laws and rules and regulations that led to your students not performing, well, hey, this is a performance-based business. What you all need to do is elect some better people so that you get better outcomes. And if you live in a state where the outcomes are what you want, then you should re-elect that person or vote for somebody who sounds just like them so you can get more of the things that you want. This is the trade-off of putting things at the state level, is that if you vote unwisely in your state and you end up with outcomes that you don't want, you ain't got nobody to be mad at. Now, you can't get mad at the rest of the country because the rest of the country didn't vote for it. You only get mad at the rest of your state. You only get mad at your next door neighbors because y'all are the ones who voted for this idiocy and the outcome that you got. So, again, this is just the trade-off. And again, this is the reason why I'm not in politics. And the reason why you never hear politicians breaking things down like this is I believe there are some politicians who are astute enough to understand everything I'm saying here today. The problem is you can't say this stuff when you work in the government. You can't say this stuff out loud because, again, you'll piss a whole lot of people off, including the people who funded your last campaign. And if your entire career has been in politics, what are you going to do when the people who have funded your career no longer fund your career? What else are you going to do? You have no other skills. So any of you ever want to understand why politicians don't talk the way that I'm talking, is because of what I'm explaining here. You can't talk like this, and you ever want to understand why someone like me talks the way I do, yet I don't work in politics. I just told you. You can't talk like this and work in politics. You can't work in politics and talk like this. You got to pick one. Which one you want to do? You want to talk like this? Don't get into politics. If you are okay not talking like this and not telling people the actual truth, then go ahead and get into politics and you can lie for a living. All right, last point. Ultimately, all education comes down to not the federal government, not the state government, not the schools, not the teachers. It comes down to parenting, mom and dad. Education comes down to mom and dad. If your child is not doing well, I've said this before. If your child is underperforming in school by your standards and it's your child, then look in the mirror. Don't go up to the school and get mad at the teachers. All right, don't go to the internet and talk about the Department of Education. Don't get mad at the governor or the mayor or whoever it is you think is responsible. You are responsible. That's your child. If your child is not performing in school, you are responsible as the mother or the father, or ideally the mother and the father. And when there's a mother and a father in the home with the child that they biologically created together, usually that child has a pretty good, solid foundation. Even if they're going to the trashiest school in town, they're going to have a solid foundation because they got a mother and father at home. And I know a lot of people in the educational space, a lot of people who work as teachers, mostly I know a lot of people in the public school space. I know people who are teachers, everyday teachers. I know people who are principals. I know people who are assistant principals. I know college, what do they call those people? Professors. I know people who work at the administrative level in colleges. And to a man, often many of these people are women, but to a woman or to a man, they all say that when they work with students who have solid home situations, those kids are much easier to deal with when they come to school. And when they deal with kids who don't have solid home situations, you get a lot of shenanigans at school. Why? Because no one's holding those kids to a standard or to any level of accountability in their everyday lives. You think they're going to come to school and listen to you as a teacher, and then they listen to their own parents. They're not going to listen to you. And your work becomes a lot more stressful because of who you're dealing with. You deal with kids who show up with already a solid home situation. Mom and dad bringing them to school. You know mom, you know dad. You see them all the time. And they know the kid knows they have to be respectful because they're going to get a report back to mom and dad. Those kids are much easier to teach. Here's what I tell people in the consulting space. And I tell athletic coaches understand this as well. The best coaches have the best players. The best coaches have the best players. All right, you know why Phil Jackson's a legendary basketball coach? Because he coached some really good guys like Kobe, Michael, Scotty, and Shaq. All right, he didn't go to some bum team and turn them into geniuses. He went to the teams that were already good and made them better. The best teachers out there have the best students. What does that mean? That means if you're a teacher and you want to make yourself look good, don't go to some trashy school. What was that movie where the white woman went to some like school in the inner city and the kids were terrible and then she turned them into being great students? What was the name of that school? Name of that movie? Was it Dangerous Minds? Was that the name of the movie? Y'all remember that movie? What was that woman's name? The actress. The white woman goes into some inner city school and is like this danger zone, and like she might not even. Someone said Freedom Writers. That's not the movie I'm talking about. I'm talking about Dangerous Minds. Yeah, this is back in the 90s. Yeah, so don't do Dangerous Minds. All right? Don't be Coach Carter. All right, don't do that. All right, don't be Coach Carter, where you're gonna go to some kids who seem to be completely lost, and you're gonna turn them into something. Maybe you're good. Maybe you're that good if you want to play that game. But I'm telling you the way you should play the game. If you want to look good, go to a school where the kids have two parents at home and everybody's showing up respectfully, and then go teach them. All right, you're gonna look like a genius even if you're not that good. It's the same thing in sports. All right, don't go pick the worst team in the NBA and coach them. Go pick the best team in the NBA. Go pick the team that has LeBron and Luka. Y'all notice that when the Lakers, they were doing okay. They were an okay team. Then as soon as they got Luka on the team and paired him with LeBron, all of a sudden they started winning all these games. And now the coach looks like a genius. See, every coach looks like a genius when you got good players. And this is the point. I'm making this about the educate Michelle Pfeiffer. Yes, that's the woman's name. Yes, thank you, everybody who put in that comments. A bunch of you said it. So, listen, every coach looks like a genius when they have really good players. All right, this is the reason why Phil Jackson looks like a genius, because he picked really good players. If you're in a consulting industry, if you do any type of service-based business, if you pick good clients, your business is going to do well, and you're going to look good because you're going to get all this social proof from your clients succeeding because you pick people who are already on the track to success. It's not that you didn't do anything, but you didn't have to make them a success. Why? Because they were already on their way to success. All you did was help them. Now, you don't want to pick someone who's a loser and then try to turn them into a winner. All right, that's a failing strategy. And I see too many people try this. See, Michelle Pfeiffer is a movie. All right, Dangerous Minds was a movie. Now, that usually doesn't, in real life, don't happen that way. Coach Carter was a movie. All right, in real life, usually doesn't happen that way. You want to pick teams that are already good and make them better. What was the movie with Denzel Washington where he went and coached? He's a black, obviously. He's coaching a football team. There's a bunch of white guys, and they were kind of racist against him, but they were already a good team. What was the name of that movie? Was that Remember the Titans? I don't watch movies, so I think it was Remember the Titans. But understand, the Titans, the team that Denzel was coaching, they were already good. Now, it's not like he went to some bum-ass team and said, we're going to make y'all good. He went to a team that was already good. He said, we're just going to keep being good. All right, that's what you want to do. All right, that's the game that you want to play. And this comes down to parenting, folks. Those of you who have kids, you set your kids up with a good home life, they're going to do fine in school. Doesn't matter what school you send them to. Teachers can be trash. They're going to be good because they got mom and dad at home. Now, if kids don't have mom and dad at home, then there's extra work that needs to be done by somebody, whether that's just the mom or just the dad or the school, to fix the broken situation that kid's coming from. And no disrespect to the parents out there who are single, but we call it a broken home for a reason. Again, no disrespect to any of you. But all that being said, let's get into the commentary. And we are We did this with 5 minutes to spare on the clock. So did good on time here today. I think my YouTube stream froze again. YouTube stream keeps freezing every day. I don't know why. But what I will do is I will upload the recording of this up to YouTube after this is over, as usual. Since this happens damn near every day, it's become a normal routine for us over here to get this re-uploaded. So let me see if I got anything on Instagram I need to respond to. Good morning, everybody over on Instagram who is watching this. If you have a comment, you can go ahead and drop it in. Zori, I see you over there. Thank you for that comment. You said that No Child Left Behind didn't do anything in Baltimore. Didn't do anything anywhere. Didn't do anything in all of America. So, yeah, you're right. I appreciate that. Who was that? Community Concierge and Mark Triolia. Good to see you here. All right, TikTok, we are over here. Let me scroll up as far as I can. When I'm on TikTok, I can only scroll just to a certain point. So I can't see every single comment, but I'll respond to the ones I can see. Just Calm Down says, stop talking about things you don't have facts on. You're just making things up. What am I talking about that I didn't have facts on? And you got to be careful with the word facts. People have misused this word, and it can often be used to mislead because you can pick facts. You can pick and choose facts out of context. I can find a whole bunch of facts about you specifically as a person that make you look bad. I can also find a bunch of facts that make you look good. Now, if I just choose one set of facts to present about you, I can make you look like the worst person in the world, or I can make you look like you walk on water. So facts are not what we need. What we need is truth. And what I'm sharing here today, I never presented that I was telling you facts. I was giving you arguments, which are perspectives from which you can look at either side of a conversation, which is what I generally do every day. Very rarely do I come to you and say, hey, I'm giving you a bunch of facts. Because if all you needed was facts, then you can go to Google or ChatGPT and get facts. Jack says, Chinese are learning about coding. We're learning about social. Yeah, that's what I've heard. Now, I've never been to that country, but that's what I've heard. Melt said, red states won't fund education, be real. But that's what some people say. That's more conjecture than actual reality. Daryl says, he clearly does not understand how the teachers are paid. All right, well, enlighten me, Daryl. How do teachers get paid? Jeff says, are you still apologizing and excusing conservative HATE? I got to be careful with that word. You got to be careful what you say on TikTok. Jeff, what are you referring to? I don't think it's on topic. Chris says, I went to school that had 35% graduation rate. Stuff needs to change. Okay, what would you suggest? Daryl said they are already woefully underpaid. Take away subsidies, and now what do they make? Okay, let's talk about that. So people are talking, Daryl is making an argument about the amount of money that public school teachers make, and they are woefully underpaid. Okay, here's what I got to say about that. I might do a whole live on this subject, just on this subject alone. Teachers are not underpaid. Let me tell you why a teacher is not underpaid. You are underpaid when you are receiving less than what you agreed to. So, for example, if we do a business deal and I say, all right, the deal is you're going to pay me $5,000 and you pay me $4,000 and you don't give me my other $1,000, you have underpaid me by $1,000 because our agreement was $5,000, you only gave me $4,000. That's underpaid. But if we do a business deal and Daryl, you say, Dre, I'm going to pay you $4,000, and I say, Daryl, great, and we shake hands on that or even sign a contract on that $4,000, and then you pay me the $4,000, and then I say, well, you know what? I think my work is worth $10,000 and you only paid me $4,000. I believe I'm $6,000 underpaid. Am I underpaid? The answer is no, I'm not, because I agreed to $4,000. So if you accept a number, that's how much you get. Now, if I accept a number that's less than what I think I'm worth, and then I'm complaining about it later, that does not make me underpaid. That just means that I accepted something that maybe I should not have accepted, but that doesn't make me a victim, and it doesn't make you wrong for paying me what I accepted. So there are three ways to earn money in life. There are three levels of money earning. There is what you accept, there's what you negotiate, and there's what you demand. Those are the three levels of making money. School teachers accept the salary. And I'm not saying that they're wrong for accepting the salary, because a lot of teachers, from my experience, people I know who work in the teaching industry, some of you may be listening to this, fit this description, they don't get into it for the money. Anybody who's getting into a career for the money usually goes into a career that's known to pay money. School teaching is not known as a money industry. So you don't go and become a public school teacher because you need to maximize your money. If you want to maximize your money, you might get into real estate or go into finance or become a lawyer or go into medical school, because you know there's a lot of money there. Nobody goes into education for the money. Does anybody here who went into education for the money? Nobody does, because everybody knows there's not a lot of money there. So we can't frame it as they're underpaid, as if they're owed something other than what they accepted. Whatever you accept is what you get. This is the way life works. So I'm going to reject this frame that you are presenting here. This is a false frame, Daryl, that teachers are underpaid. They are not underpaid. Any teacher that wants to make more money, here's what I suggest you do. Take all the knowledge that you have from teaching, And whether it's something that you could teach to a student or stuff that you know that could help other teachers be better teachers, become an entrepreneur and start teaching it to those people where you're more independent and you have more financial flexibility, i.e. your money is more elastic. When you're an entrepreneur, your money is elastic. It could be very small, it could be very big, but it's not set. When you have a job, your money is set. It's set based on whatever salary that you accept. And if you don't like that salary, why would you accept the job? I mean, there are many answers to that question, but you can't call yourself underpaid if you accept a number and then you don't like the number. That just doesn't make any sense. Melt says, think for yourself, but trust Elon. What are you referring to? I don't know what you're referencing there. I don't think I said that. Tennessee said the money is still there, it's just not controlled by the federal government. Yes, exactly. Which means the states have more control over their own money. Shoo. Let's see. Bean, thank you for the follow. Ron said, right on choice. Yes, school choice is a big thing. Every parent should have a choice as to what school to send their kid to. No parent should be stuck. I can only send my kid to this school because this is where I live. I don't agree with that. We got buses and cars and trains and airplanes these days. Why is my kid stuck at one school? Jack says, separate the kid from the parents. What do you mean? Coco said, I didn't have many options for my children, but we put them in a private school. Coco, how much is the school? How much are you spending on the school? And you said children. How many kids are we talking? Can you give us some ballpark numbers? I'm always interested to know. This is for the audience, but also for me. I always want to know how much money people are spending on private school because I'm a parent. So private school, I might possibly send my kids to. I'm damn sure not sending my kids to a public school. Not because the public schools are necessarily bad where I am, but because public schools are following federal government mandates, and I don't want my kids going to federally mandated schools that have rules that are given to them by the federal government. Just as a principle, I don't care who works at the school. Plugged in TV said, why don't the government just invest in the schools than in their communities? Well, the government has no money. Plugged in. That's the first reason. When you start a sentence, it was, why doesn't the government just invest? Invest what? They ain't got nothing. Federal government's $36 trillion in debt. It'll be 37 soon. So they can't invest in anything because they ain't got nothing. Ban says the left never wanted choice. I hope school taxes go to the school you choose. Well, I would generally have to agree with that. I think the political left, as far as the politicians, they want to have more control. I think the political left has positioned themselves as wanting to have more control over as many things as possible. So I would agree with that. And I think a lot of their voters, I think many of them consciously support this, and some of them don't quite know what they're supporting, and they're supporting it anyway. And then some of them just hate the right, so they're just going to go with whatever the left is doing no matter what it is because they can't vote for the right. That's one of the issues of having a binary political system. We have this two-party system. You only got two choices. Speaking of choice, I think a lot of American citizens would love if we had 3 or 4 or 5 different choices when it came to who we vote for, whereas we can break up this power dynamic between just these two groups. So we got a pinned comment. Sihan FFX said, kids aren't stuck at one school. You can move your child to another school within the county. Well, if there is another school within the county, and if that's allowed, and it depends on where you live. In cities, I'm a city guy. I don't know where you're from, say Han FFX. That was not the way it worked where I grew up. There was an elementary school in the neighborhood, and if you live within this zone, you look on the map, you send your kid to that school, and you did not have a plan. You didn't have an option B. So let's see where I was. All right, we got a lot of comments coming in here, so I'm not able to catch everything. Mary Helen said, thank you for your truth. Well, thank you. Plug said, explain why the school is not good for the students. I don't know what school you're talking about, but I think I gave a pretty good explanation while I was talking. Morning said, I agree 100%. We are last in the world in education, but dump billions into education. Well, that's federal government inefficiency, which we talked about a lot here. Your Mill says, sounds like you get your info off of Facebook. I don't even use Facebook. I use it for my live stream, but other than that, I don't use Facebook. You said not very intelligent. Oh, Mill, if you really believe that, tell me what I got wrong. But just the an ad hominem doesn't prove anything. Jack says, I think you already said that. I answered that. Go said, what does my mom think about us as part of the educational system? I value her opinion. Well, unfortunately, she doesn't do live streams. She might be at work right now, so can't tell you. Can't tell you what she thinks. She doesn't get into these kind of conversations anyway. Plug said, explain why that school. What school are you talking about? I need context here, folks. Y'all responding things in real time, but by the time I see your comment, I've already moved past that point, so I don't know what you're talking about. Geek Zero says competition is not for everyone. Well, some people want to avoid it. I agree with that part, but competition is good for the marketplace because we allow the best products and services to emerge at the top, and then people can make their own choices. So competition is great in a capitalistic society because it forces people to step their games up or to go under because they fail to adjust. Becca said there's a charter school in an old mall strip. Yeah, exactly. Charter schools will work anywhere. You can put them anywhere, they'll do it. Charter schools will go anywhere. Q Ramsey said charter and private schools don't need public funds. Public dollars are for public schools. Fair enough. Fair enough. I think if charter schools can prove their worth, they can find the money somewhere else. And they can do it in a more entrepreneurial sense. And I think they would perform better when they're dealing with real money that's their money or somebody's real money, as opposed to government money, which often doesn't feel real. Becca said they know they are inferior. I hope you're talking about public schools. Glenn shared the live with more than 10 friends. Thank you, Glenn, for sharing the live. Can everybody else share the live? That's the first time I saw a notification like that. Geek said, I don't disagree with the argument. I just think it's simpler than this. It could be. I'm trying to give some more details of it for a reason. Megan said, do charter schools offer special education the same as public schools? I doubt it. I doubt as a whole. As in a big picture, I doubt it. Are there some that would? I would say yes, but do they all do it? No, because they don't have the same rules. Charter schools don't operate by the same rules as public schools, so they're not going to do things exactly the same by definition. Jeffrey said, you understand education should not be treated like a business. Well, it depends on what part of education, Jeffrey, we're talking about. One part of business is the competition. Again, Uber and Lyft versus taxis. All it did was it allowed the marketplace, which is us, the people who ride in those things, to decide what we like best. Do I think in business, that's business. Do I think schools should operate that way? Absolutely, they should. Now, it doesn't mean everything about business needs to apply to education. So let's not use that as a blanket statement. So yes, there are some things about business that should apply, or entrepreneurship that should apply to schools, such as let's let everyone throw their hat in the ring and let the parents pick the school they want to send their kids to rather than being forced into sending their kids to one thing, i.e., I don't want to be forced to take a taxi. I want to have option of a taxi or Uber. And whichever one I like better, I'll take. And the marketplace is going to let the taxis or Uber know we want you or we don't want you. And you must make adjustments. The school industry should work the same way. That doesn't mean every single thing about business should apply to education. So it's kind of a straw man question you asked there, but I broke it down. I don't know if you intended it that way. Geek said, are we talking about unions or schools specifically? I'm talking about both. And I think I pretty much made clear which one I was talking about when I was talking about this. Shutter said, that's not true. What's not true? When y'all say something like this, I need to know what you're referring to. I need context. Because by the time I read your comment, I've already moved past the point that you're responding to. Q said, you're basing your argument on falsehood. Okay, what I got wrong? Tell me what I got wrong. I don't need y'all to leave these comments. I don't need you to leave the comment that says you're wrong or I disagree. I need you to tell me what I got wrong or just tell me your disagreement. Tell me or correct me if you think I have something wrong. Just go straight to that. You don't even have to say this part. Jeffrey said, who in their right mind is against inclusion? I'm against inclusion. I'm against inclusion. I come from the sports world. Sports world is by definition exclusive. There is exclusion in sports. It's not inclusive. Sports is not inclusive. The New York Knicks, how many girls on the basketball team in New York Knicks? 0. How many girls on the Lakers? 0. But half the country is women. So sports are by definition exclusive. Half the country is women. There's not a single female player in the NBA or the NFL. How is that? Because sports are exclusive. They're exclusive to who is the best performer, period. So there, answers your question there, Jeffrey. Anthony said, court systems be responding how other be responding, and they are just for power. Anthony, I don't know what you just said there. Abby said, can't wait for education back to states. Well, we'll see if it happens. Plugged in said, I'm against school choice. Why? For what reason? Stutter said his example never happened ever. That's why it's an example, mofo. I didn't say it happened. That's the reason why it's an example. I said I'm painting with a broad brush and giving you a generality as an example to help you understand the point. The federal government doesn't regulate what students learn. That's already left to the states. Well, it depends. As a general statement, that it depends. Let's see. Union keeps jobs moving. Is that a good thing? It can be a good thing. Unions can be good for people who are working and are protected by the union, definitely. But they also can be a bad thing depending on how they're operating. I told you teachers union operate in such a way that is blocking parents from having a choice as to what schools to send their kids to. So a union's job, number one, is to defend the people in the union, not to help the kids. So the teachers union's number one job is not the kids. Their number one job is protecting the jobs of the people in their union. Now they'll tell you their number one job is to help the kids, but that's not the truth. Because by definition, the union's number one job is protecting their people. Geek said kids in Mississippi have money because of states like New York. Yes, exactly. And again, that's why I said that's a legitimate point. It's a legitimate argument against the dismantling of the DOE that not every state has the same amount of money. Becca said that's how they keep them poor. Well, I don't know what you're even responding to there, Becca, but I don't even like the frame of this comment because nobody can keep anyone else poor. That's not possible. And first of all, poor is a way of thinking. Is not a tangible, measurable state. Broke is a measurable state. Broke is you don't have money. Poor is a way of thinking, and no one can make you think a certain thing. So people who are poor, that's a mentality that they have had they have had and has been passed down to them by often generationally. So no one can keep another person poor. Like a billionaire, Elon Musk, is not the reason that anybody in America is poor or broke or can't pay their bills. But a lot of people on the political left have been framing things in this way for a long time. So even though I said someone like AOC or Bernie, they have a clear form as to what they're about, that doesn't mean I agree with them. I don't agree with Bernie's general position that we need to take from the people who have in order to give to people who don't. He generally has been on that for a while. He has a lot of supporters. I don't agree with it, but I would never say that he's not clear as to where he stands. I respect the fact that he's clear on it, but I don't agree with it. Carla said, the federal government can send funds to states without having a Department of Education. Of course, they can do whatever they want to do. Of course. Geek said, Metro Detroit here. Detroit versus suburbs is real. Well, that applies to every city. It's different. Every city has differences between what's happening in the metro area and what's happening outside of the cities. So parents need to take more. Yes, exactly, Carla. I agree. I think every parent agrees with that, hopefully. Anthony, what are you talking about? Your comments are not making any sense to me. Megan said, can we talk about how this impacts special education? Well, that might be an entire live unto itself, Megan. So if we can talk about it a little bit. Leave a comment and tell me what you want to talk about. Tell me your position. What do you think about it? When I was talking about the Department of Education probably like 4 months ago, somebody else was talking about that as well. But that seems like it's a whole conversation unto itself. Geek said, I agree on the parenting to a point. At what point do you stop agreeing? Ken said, because no one from a single parent household becomes successful. Ken, you got to come with more substance in that. Really? Is that really what you thought of? You thought of that enough to type it in and press the enter button in my comments? Ken said, are children from wealthy single parent homes poorly educated? I don't think I ever made that point, so it's a straw man question. Geek said, it takes a village, but kids become their own people. Okay. Directionally, I get your point. Carla said, there's always a pushback when two-parent homes is brought up because people get defensive. Yeah, I get it. And that's a perfect timing for you to say that, Carla, because there are more single-parent homes and single-parent adults from single-parent homes these days than there have ever been. So when I bring up two-parent households is the actual key to solving education, people who either come from a single-parent household or are right now a single parent, they get defensive as if I'm talking personally about you. Well, I kind of am talking personally about you, but not you as an individual, you like your name. I don't know you. I'm talking about the concept in general that kids from single-parent homes tend to be the ones that end up in the system more often and statistically do not do as well academically as kids from two-parent homes. That's not even something to debate. That's not to say that you can't have a criminal coming out of a two-parent home. And it's not to say that you can't have a great student coming out of a single-parent home, of course. Now, again, do we need to split hairs like that here? I hope that we're at a higher level of discourse here than I even need to say that. Plugged in said, what about Head Start? What about it? Dan said, there's a direct correlation between wealth and quality of education regardless of how many parents. Okay, let's assume that that's true. I don't know it to be true, but let's assume that what you just said there, Dan, is true. And my answer is so. There's also a direct correlation between two-parent households and wealth. So, I mean, we could go 1,000 different directions with this depending on how you want to parse the data. That's the interesting thing about data is that you can pull it from any different angle and look at it from 1,000 different angles and get 1,000 different conclusions. That's the tricky thing about data and facts and statistics is that you can easily paint any picture you want depending on how you present it. Geek said, I have a disabled kid. I'm not asking for my kids' issues to be everyone's issues. Okay, fair enough. Scott said the Department of Education ruined the education system. Some people believe that. Some people do believe that. Not everybody, but some do. What color is a carrot? Said you look so familiar. Yeah, you probably saw me on. I don't even know how to answer that. I was trying to come up with something funny. I couldn't come up with anything. Give me a minute. Pass it along said this is exactly why I hate politics. It's part of the game. It's part of the game. Dan said, so pretty much politicians are not for the people. Dan, I would generally agree with that. That's you kind of paraphrase me, and I don't really like when people paraphrase me, but generally you are headed in the right direction. Politicians in America, because of the way the system is set up, is not because they are necessarily bad people. It's because the way the system is set up in America is that politics has become a career rather than a public service. So by design, politicians tend to have to prioritize themselves over prioritizing serving the people because they're trying to keep their jobs. When it wasn't a job, then this wasn't an issue. But now it's a job, so it's an issue. So that's the problem. Dan says some of these schools think they have more control over your children than the parents. And again, only the public schools have that issue. You don't see that happening in a private school. That never happens in a private school, and it rarely happens in a charter school. The reason why is at a private school, you're writing a check. So if I write a check for $30,000 to send my kid to your school, if I come up to the school and say I want to talk to the principal is meeting with me. Why? Because I wrote you a check for $30,000. You're going to take my meeting. You're going to take my call because I wrote a check. Now, if you didn't write a check, then they don't have to listen to you, even though they're supposed to. So even though technically you pay for public school because you pay taxes, have y'all seen the videos of when parents go to the school board meetings and they voice their disagreements? How do the school board people respond to those parents? They generally ignore you. I mean, they let you have your 2 minutes to talk, but generally they just let you talk. They say absolutely nothing. They don't respond to you, and then they say thank you for your time, and then they keep doing what they want to do because they do not respect you, even though you technically pay their salaries. But because you're not writing a check out of your actual account, they don't really respect your input. But at a private school where you write the check, that's literally your money. They listen to what the hell you have to say because you wrote a check. They operate more like a business than a public school does because they are a business. And because of that, they listen to the parents more. And as a parent myself, I would rather send my kid to a school where I know if I make a call, somebody's answering the phone, rather than if I make a call, they can take it or leave it. I don't know how y'all feel, but as a parent, that's a priority to me. I'm not sending my kids somewhere where if I call you and say, hey, what the hell are y'all doing up there? You can just ignore me. That's not happening. So that's why my kid ain't going to no public school. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care if I got to sit here and teach him myself and I got to cancel this live stream to teach my kid. My kid ain't going to no public school, especially as long as the Department of Education exists. Connie, good morning. Connie Gresenbach, thank you. Daniel said, get rid of the Department of Education. It didn't help Donnie. Who's Donnie? Trump? Trump graduated from college. I mean, he was okay. What color is a carrot? Yes, that's me. The OG basketball YouTuber. Yes. Is that what they call me? I'll take that title. Passing along said, education definitely is parenting. Kids will have all F's and still allowed to play games. Yeah. Yes, I've heard. That's what I've heard from some people who work in certain schools in certain places. Dan said, okay, but how are you going to enforce kids having good parents? You don't. That's the point, Dan. You don't enforce that. You can't make people do what they don't want to do. If someone wants to have a kid as a single parent and they do it by design, I hear people talking about doing it on purpose. I hear women say, I want to have a kid by myself and they go get some, what did they call it when people like freezing the eggs and go have a kid and plant it in you, you don't even know the guy, and just have a kid by yourself because you got enough money. All right, do you. If that's what you want to do, I wouldn't recommend it, but I can't tell another adult what to do with their lives as long as they're doing something that is within the confines of the law. I can't stop them. Let's see. Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer, Be More Polo. That's the movie I was talking about. Yeah. Yes, a bunch of you knew that movie. Yes, I was thinking maybe her, but I wasn't quite sure. All these white women look the same to me. Coach Carter was more realist. Coach Carter was based on a true story, though, wasn't it? I think it was based on a true story. Oh, yeah, Mr. Clark. What was the name of that movie with Mr. Clark? Lean on Me? I think that was based on a true story, too, wasn't it? Was it Lean on Me based on a true story? I saw that movie. Dangerous Minds, I remember it, but I don't think I even watched it. Remember the Titans, I remember it, but I don't think I watched it. But that one, Mr. Clark, I did watch that one. I did see that movie. A long time ago, though. Yeah, Lean on Me. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We have 14,000 likes. Can we get to 20,000 here today? Thank you, Carla. My Instagram is just my name, Dre Baldwin. DREBALDWIN. The link to my Instagram and my YouTube are both in my profile on TikTok. And I should have said this at the beginning. If you are watching on TikTok right now, please follow my Instagram and my YouTube, because TikTok has warned me that I'm one strike away from getting completely banned off TikTok. They're going to destroy my whole account if I get one more strike. I've been told explicitly that that's the situation. So I'm one strike away from getting banned on TikTok. So any of you watching on TikTok and you don't like what I'm saying here today, just wait. Eventually they're going to ban me. So then you won't have to worry about it. And so where is it? So I'll tell you where it is. They just told me this. So here it is. They just sent me this on, I think this was Sunday. You see that? Account ban warning. So if y'all think I'm lying, they just sent me this 2 days. What's today? Tuesday? Yeah, 2 days ago I got this. Account ban warning. You have multiple strikes on your account for violating our community guidelines. Another similar violation could result in an account ban. So my current violation, my last violation was it wasn't even off my live streams. I've gotten pretty good at not getting kicked off the live streams. Pretty good. I just got kicked off last week. So what am I saying? But it was from a post. And my posts are often just clips that come out of longer videos, and the software just picks a clip and it puts it out. And it was something I was saying about Trump. And they said, well, you violated misinformation or whatever they said. Whatever. So that's the situation. All right, can we get to 20K, folks? I see 15. Yes, can we get to 20? So my Instagram profile is Dre Baldwin, just my name. My YouTube is YouTube/@DreB, just the first letter of my last name, B. Jeremiah J, good morning. I'm doing great. How you doing? Maya Burton, good morning. Megan said, do charter schools offer... I think you already asked me that question. Raymond Bailey said, anyone can get on the site and say anything. That's a fact, Raymond. There's a fact. So any of you wanted facts, Raymond just gave you a fact. Anyone can get on this site and say anything. Yes, you can. Technically, you can say anything. Raymond, actually, let me push back on that. There's a few things you can't say. Trust me, I've been suspended off TikTok 8 times in the last 6 months. You can't say anything. There's certain things you cannot say. There's a country with the letter R you can't say. There's a guy who has a bald head who used to be a kickboxer who got banned off all social media. You cannot say his name. You can't say the R word when it comes to kids who are in special education classes. I said it once and I got kicked off. You can't say that. There's a bunch of other things you can't say. So Raymond, you can say almost anything. Not everything. Trust me, I'm a litmus test for what you can't say on this app. So Farmer's Wife said, enjoying common sense and coffee. Thank you. Twink Roland Monahan. You put a thumbs up. Hopefully that's in agreement with me. Thank you. Melissa said teachers get like 4 months off a year. Yeah, I think if you ask most teachers, it's not enough. Most teachers, I think, would say that's not enough. Nikki said follow the money. Yes, always follow the money. Karasoy said teachers don't got the money to pay for that. To pay for what? Tommy said prior to becoming a full-time mom, when we had kids, my wife was a high school teacher with a specialist. What does that mean? Specialist what? Melissa said the private school we're looking at is a little over $500 a month. Is that all year or $500 for like 8 months? So what's that? $500 8 months? Was that $4,000 for a year? That's actually pretty cheap. $4,000 for a year, if that's what you're saying. The private schools I looked at in Miami. I don't know where you live, Melissa. Where are you located? I think that matters here. So everyone has a frame. The private schools I was looking at, and these are not the only private schools in town, but there are some well-known private schools in Miami that I looked at, and for kindergarten is $30,000 a year. So yours is $4,000. I need to move to wherever you live. It was $30,000 for kindergarten, and then the higher you go, the more it costs. So high school is like $50,000 a year. It's like college. But one thing I will tell you, if you got a school full of kids whose parents are all paying $50,000 a year, do you think you have as many behavioral issues at that school as you would have at another? No. It doesn't mean kids don't still act up when their parents got $50,000. But it's less of it. And if the kids are acting up, you can make a phone call to the parent, and guess what? The parent's going to answer the phone because they already gave you $50,000. So they're taking your call. So it's easier to solve issues, I think, when people put money on the table. Actually, that's not even I think. I know. As a business owner myself, the more money somebody puts on the table, the fewer problems you get. All y'all can take that with you. Sihan said, kids aren't stuck in one school. You can move your child to another school. Oh, I already answered that one. B-Star said, I'm sending my baby to a black-owned private school at $355 a month. Okay, where's that located, B-Stars? I have not heard of a black-owned private school. Not down here where I live. Maybe where you live. I'm assuming you're in the city. I'm assuming you're in a big city. I'm assuming I'm assuming you're in a city that's probably, let me guess, B-Stars, you're probably somewhere on the East Coast, maybe Detroit or Chicago. Other than that, probably an East Coast big city, but I may be wrong. Tell me where you're located. Subject True said, in Arizona now, you can be a preschool or kindergarten teacher without a degree. I think, well, why do they do that? I would guess one of the reasons they're doing it because they're trying to get more teachers, that they don't have enough people. And do you have to have a certain degree? I think any of you who knows the teaching industry very well, do you need to have an education degree to be a teacher? Like a full-time teacher, not a substitute, but full-time. I think the rules are different in every municipality. Because I remember my mom told me that I have a degree, but it's not in education. She said, if you just put in your paperwork, you can be a substitute teacher even without an education degree. But I don't think I could be a full-time teacher without a certain degree. And this is in Philadelphia, so I don't know. I think the rules are different in every place. I think Subject True just gave us an example. Oh, without a specialist degree, so she was able to make decent salary, $80K-ish 10 years ago. Where is this, Tommy? $80K as a high school teacher? That sounds pretty good. I don't think a lot of teachers even make that. Farmer's wife said, I love teaching, worked at a Christian school for less than $1,000 a month, best job ever. See you get the juxtaposition. I don't think most teachers go into it for the money. Again, if the main thing was money, most people will go into a much more structured industry where you know how much money you can make, such as a lawyer, maybe a doctor. A doctor, you got to go to school for a long time, but a lawyer is one, finance is another, maybe real estate is another, not independently, but working under a structure, like corporate structure. You know exactly how much money you can make. If you're focused on money, most people go into very structured career paths that have clear outlines of how much money you make. And education is not on that list. I mean, it has a clear structure of money, but it's not in the higher echelon. So people can become engineers, computer programmers, etc. if it's all about money. So, Farmer said, in our area, the board has to approve it. Yeah, right. Exactly. Sihan said, private schools should not receive public funds. That's why they are private. I'm 100% in agreement with you. Yes, private schools should not get public funds. And the issue with that is, if I'm sending my kid to a private school, I want to send them to a school where everybody's coming out of their pocket. And matter of fact, I want to meet the parents. Now, if I'm sending my kids to a school where everybody's paying $50,000 to send their kid there, I want to know who else is paying $50,000 to send their kid to school. Those are people I need to be doing business with. Those are my next wave of business connections and relationships and possible clients. I want to know those people. Those are people I want to hang with. I want to get invited to the Christmas dinner. That's a good reason also to send your kids to a private school. And those are kids that you want your kids to know, because those are going to be their business connects when they grow up. Sihan said, my grandchildren attend the private school and they don't need the funding. Yeah, they don't. The only funding they need is the money they collect from the customers, and the customers are the parents. That's what it is. You're a customer when you go to a private school or you send your kids there. Big Blue said private schools don't follow the same requirements as public schools. Exactly. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Please. Yes. That's what I want. I want my kids going to a school that does not follow the rules of the federal government. At least not to a T. They got to follow some things, but not all of them. Megan says school choice only works for everyone is all schools provide special education. Why is that, Megan? I mean, let's say not all schools provided special education, but if you had a special education child, you could go to a school where you may not have as many choices, or you don't have as many choices of schools because your kid's special education. What does that have to do with the other kids who are not special education, though? What's the difference? Is this more of a, if it's one thing for one type of kid, it got to be the same for everybody else? I don't know if that's what you're saying, but if that is what you're saying, I don't agree with that. I understand your position, but I don't agree. Big Blue says, this is a recording. I haven't seen any of the comments he's reading. That's because I'm scrolling from the top and the comments come faster than I can read and respond to them. This is not a recording. And how would I know that you left a comment if I'm reading your comment? Miss A said, yes, they do. They will pay for extra services to outside source. I'm in California. All right, I missed what y'all were talking about. The charter school my kids go to cater to arts. They teach differently when my kids are thriving in. See, I like that. I'd rather that where I have some flexibility here. That's the issue with public schools. I agree. My daughter's charter, you had to audition to get in. Yes, so they got to compete. Also a thing that kids need to get ready for when they become adults. Megan said, education is not all sports. All students deserve an education. Responding to inclusion. Yes, I understand that. All students deserve an education. The thing is, Megan, education does not mean you have to go to a school. You get education at home. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. Education is not all sports. I didn't say that it was. I'm saying that someone asked the question, who's against inclusion? And I answered and told you why I'm not, that I can be against inclusion, because I come from the sports world that is by definition not inclusive. And understand, when your kid is ready to go to college is not inclusive. College is exclusive. Harvard and Princeton and Yale are not inclusive. They are exclusive. That's why it's a big deal when you get in, because not everybody gets in. That's the whole point. Crystal said, yes, they call those pods. At least I heard someone refer to them as pods. When parents get together, they pool their money, they hire one teacher, and then let's say they have 5 or 6 kids together, and those 5 or 6 kids get taught together every day by the one teacher that the parents join together to hire. That's the reason why you got to know the other parents who have kids around the age of your kids, and you put them with those kids. They get the socialization, they get the personalized attention, and they get the education. And you are control of it, because if you and those other 5 parents are paying that teacher, guess what? That teacher has to do what you tell them to do. And if you don't like the teacher, she gets fired, or he gets fired. Rose Ma said, unions protect lazy people. Some people have that argument. Unions do good things as well, but I understand some people see it that way as well. Let's see. Eyes on the Prize. I remember that movie. That was like the 90s, 80s maybe. Farmer's Wife said, I've said that about poor broke for decades. You're the first person I've heard say it. But we're on the same page, Farmer's Wife. Dan Buck says, some of these goals think they have more control over your children than the parents, though. Yes, well, they operate as if they think that. And we don't know what they're thinking, but they operate that way. That's why I'm not a fan of public schools. And again, some of the things that I've seen, parents go to board meetings, they just get ignored. It's like you didn't even talk. KBOS says, hard to imagine that people cannot write clear and concise comment with context. No, I think they can. I think people just get reactive. I say something, people just immediately react without thinking out how they want to say it. All right. Let me see if I can catch up on these comments here. They keep coming. Let's see. Khalil said, YouTube legend Dre Baldwin. Well, thank you. Farmer said, I appreciate how you speak the truth. Thank you. I appreciate you and this convo popping into my feed. Megan, I appreciate that it popped into your feed. Shout out to TikTok for putting me in your feed. Hopefully they don't kick me off the app. Again, I'm on my last straw with TikTok. They said I'm one strike away from getting banned. Crystal said, went to school in the 60s before DOE. Special needs classes were provided better than today in VA. I would think so. I bet. I would bet you're right about that. Lean on Me is a true story. That's what I thought. KBOS said, why would I get banned? Well, TikTok says I have violated the guidelines too many times. I've been kicked off and suspended 8 times. But they say my next strike, I'm going to get kicked out. So you know how you go to school, you get suspended, but you come back. But then sometimes you get expelled. So they tell me I'm about to get expelled from school. I'm about to get expelled from TikTok University. Next strike that I get. Kingdom said, you can't say anything. No, you cannot. I have a backup account. So if I get banned, I'll just stream on the other one. But y'all won't see this one anymore. So I do have a backup account. Thank you for bringing that up. If you tell someone they are wrong in this app or say something people don't like, that's it. Yes, that is exactly what happens, Lauren. Trust me, I know. I've been suspended 8 times, all because of that. Melissa said, I'm in Nebraska. It's for 8 months. I'm not positive my fiance is handling it. Yeah, in Nebraska, you said $500 a month. That's a great deal. I don't think you can buy anything in Miami for $500 a month. Ashley said, oh, dang, it's $6,000 for the year in Georgia for elementary school, one we use. $6,000 is still a good deal. $6,000 is not bad. $6,000 a month is not a bad deal at all. I got to look around more. I only looked at a couple schools. Linda said, excellent point about private schools. Parents who pay make sure the kids learn and behave. Yes, they do. The more money somebody puts on the table, the more compliance you get. That's a general rule in life. When someone puts money on the table, they tend to comply with what you're doing because they wouldn't put the money on the table if they didn't like what you had going on because they have a choice. And people who put money on the table have a choice. People who don't put money on the table often don't have a choice. And that's why that's a big difference between what you see in a public school and a private school. Not all of them. Some public schools are excellent. And some private schools, well, I think most private schools, you get a lot of compliance. Why? Because people put money on the table. It's just a general rule about money and business as a whole. Crystal said, my grandson's private school is $22,000 a year. And see, that sounds more like what it costs down here. How old is your grandson, Crystal? What grade is he in? High school, middle school, elementary? Boya 1966 said $130,000 in California here. For school? For private school? What school are we talking? I've heard that there are schools that cost that much money, but are you talking about school there, Boya? You just put $130,000. I don't know if that's a dollar amount. Megan said, I live in rural New Hampshire. 3 kids in public schools and our teachers are fantastic. I think in certain towns, yes, you can send your kids to public school, no money out of your pocket, and it will be great. I do believe that is true. I believe every area you can find a school that fits that description. You can at least find one, depending on where you live. And you're in rural New Hampshire. So I think if you're outside of a city, you have a better chance of finding it than when you're inside of a city. I would just theorize. In cities, you tend to get a lot of nonsense when you're inside of a city. And I'm a city guy, so trust me, I know. But I know a lot of people who are not from the city. Shy Suave said, I used to watch your basketball videos when I was in high school. Shout out to people who used to watch the basketball videos back in the day. I'm still here. I'm still alive. We're doing this now. So Shy Suave, hope you got some value out of those videos. Adam said $6K to $15K in Louisiana for K2 through 8 private. All right, $6K is not bad. $15K is a little, $6K, I'm cool. I could pay $6K if I like the school. $15K? That one I might have to think about. I got to go look at the school and I got to know who all the teachers are. I want to know exactly what y'all teaching. I don't want to see any rainbow flags on the wall if I'm paying $15K. If I'm paying $15K, I want things my way. That's the way I'm looking at it. I want to know who the other parents are. I want to know who their kids are. I'm doing a whole lot of background if I'm paying $15K or more than $15K. KBOS said Arizona's giving public money. Oh, we're going to go 5 more minutes here, folks. Let me wrap it up. Arizona's giving public money for private and religious schools. Okay. Well, that's what they voted for. Tommy said Atlanta. All right. She needed the 3rd degree and was a department chair. Money is... Okay, so... Oh, she had 3 college degrees and she was a department chair. Well, see, that explains the $80K, Tommy. Now it makes sense. I thought you were saying she was just teaching geography class in the high school. $80K, that's a great deal. Now she had 3 degrees and she was a department chair. Now the number that you gave makes a whole lot of sense. Marky Man said $20K. We hit 20K likes. Thank you for helping me get to the likes. Thank you, Carla, for moderating and helping as you have been. Carla said, we have school choice, but the funds that would have gone to public school go towards the tuition. Okay, fair enough. Jay Singleton says, amazing that every occupation starts with a teacher and they aren't compensated accordingly. Okay, fair enough. A lot of people feel that about teachers. Do I think just as a whole, should they make more money based on what they do? I would say yes. I would say there's no reason why Kim Kardashian makes more money than all the teachers in the state of California put together. That doesn't seem to make logical sense. The reality is teachers know what they're accepting when they accept the job. That's just what it is. This is just the reality of life. Again, this is the reason why I can't be a politician. I would piss too many people off by saying things like this. Carl said, we still pay out of pocket the difference, $45,000 for 3 kids combined. Okay. And the thing is, not every parent can pay $45K out of pocket, for 3 kids, but it depends on people's priorities, really, what they want to do. And there's ways to work around the financial availability. Megan said the federal government is funding schools and they get to dictate what the kid learns. That's right, but the federal government is funding schools with our money. So we should be able to dictate, and technically that's what they're doing, but the way that they operate with parents of public schools is they act as if is not your money that they're collecting. And that's my issue with the public school system, is that even though it's technically your money, they act like it's not. Big D said, "This is my second time watching you. You are brilliant, my friend." Well, Big D, I'm on here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Why you only watch me 2 times? Or are you doing all the other times? Megan says, "I'm saying because school choice vouchers take money from the public school." Okay, I got what you're saying, Megan. I understand your argument. Adam said, "I think teachers should start at 100K, but they have to teach, not indoctrinate kids." Well, if teaching started at 100K, Adam, let me tell you some things that would change. If teaching started at 100K, first of all, a lot of teachers who have jobs now would not have jobs because there'd be a lot more competition, and the educational system would get to pick the best teachers, and a lot of bum-ass teachers would no longer be eligible because they would lose out to the better teachers. If teaching was at 100K, there's some people who could be teachers right now that would make more money teaching than they make doing what they do at their current jobs. So that'd be a beautiful thing if teaching started at 100K. First of all, where's the money coming from, Adam? Who's paying for that? It's a great idea in theory. Who's paying for it? The government's broke. So if they put more money into circulation to pay the teachers, that means the cost of your everyday life is going to go up because that would trigger more inflation. Difference Maker say, "Pods, where can I find more info?" Difference Maker, I would start on ChatGPT. Say, can you just ask ChatGPT, can you explain what pods are for education and homeschooling kids? And it'll give you an overview. Farmer's Wife said, "Our local school have children graduated who cannot count, change, or read at the 4th grade level." I believe that. My mom said kids, you know how they have the clocks on the wall with the hands? That a lot of days kids can't read those clocks because they just look at digital clocks and they don't know how to read a clock. I believe all that to be true. Megan said, "I want schools to be exclusive. If my kids are smartest in the room, they're in the wrong room." Okay, well, you're willing to pay for it. They got schools like that, Megan. If you're willing to pay for it. DYM said that the native boarding school I went to in the early 2000s is so much different than today. I guess so. I do have the backup account, so if I get banned off TikTok, just look for my backup account. It'll be on here somewhere. People are afraid of the truth. That's why they want to kick you off. Well, this is kind of TikTok's doing. This is not the everyday person. This is TikTok. DeAndy said private schools don't have to take everyone. That's right. They're a business. No business has to take everyone. They don't have to take everybody's money if they don't want to. That's the great thing about operating like a business, is that you have choice. When you put the money up, you have a say in how things go. When you don't put any money up, you don't have a say. That is a general rule of how life works. So any of you want to have more say in how things go in your life or the life of your kids, put some money on the table. Guaranteed they'll start listening to what you have to say. You put no money on the table, you are what's the word I'm looking for here? Susceptible to whatever they decide. Sherry said, "Want both my kids to private school. Best decision." I believe you. I believe you. Crystal said, "Oh, your grandson's in the 5th grade." Someone said, "How did I enjoy the Tesla ad at the White House?" I didn't see what the big deal was. Adam said, "I feel like your content is awesome. Wish it reached people outside of conservative." I think it does. I'm not a conservative. I'm just speaking on things as logically as I can and as objectively as I understand them. And that tends to have people think that I'm conservative. But my question to that is, what does that say about the liberal side of things if my approach is conservative? Yes, Carl, exactly. Sacrifice to set your priorities. Farmer said, "Our local school children graduating who cannot count, change." Oh, y'all read that one. All right, I think we almost got it. Christian Fridstead said, "Why do some people want to limit education?" Depends on what you mean by limit. Dude in the story says, "So they get to choose who is educated." Who are you talking about? What are you talking about? Adam said, "Take out the DOE and all the nonsense, plus we pay property tax for education." Yes, our taxes are paying for all this stuff. Dude said, "Your approach is to butcher standardized education." I'm not a fan of standardized education because human beings are not standard. So, dude, for example, your way of learning and my way of learning are not the same. So why should we both have to follow the same process? That doesn't make any sense to me. Does it make sense to you? KBO said, "Politics have ruined the system of education in this country." Well, politics have ruined a lot of things in this country. Our setup of politics. Not that politics itself is bad. It's the setup. It was not supposed to be a full-time job. As soon as it became a full-time job, we got a whole lot of nonsense. That's the issue, is that it's a full-time job. Kingdom said, "People tend to pick a side for you when you don't agree with them." Oh, tell me about it. I know. I get accused of being MAGA/Trump almost every day on here when I'm just trying to speak objectively about what I see. But I've never said I'm on their side or anything, but people just assume that if they hear something they don't like. Farmer said, "Kids out of high school are not set up to win." Well, You got to look at the parents. It's not the school. It's not the school. Said a bare minimum is a standard. Tailored teaching is funded by the federal government. You agree it's needed? Well, schools already teach the bare minimum. A private school, there is certain things that they have to teach, even though they're a private school. It's not like if your kid went to private school for one day and public school for the next day, they'd be getting a completely different story in the same grade, in the same type of class. Now they're going to get a completely different story between Monday and Tuesday. So there are still baselines that everybody teaches, because they're, for the most part, the system is still that kids are getting funneled from high school up through, ideally, a lot of parents are still ideally wanting their kids to get a higher education, i.e. college and university. So there's still a baseline you have to understand in order to be ready for those tests and to fill out your applications. So the baseline still exists. It's just that I don't want to send my kid through an entirely federally mandated educational system for 12 years. And also, I want to have a say. As a parent, if I don't like what's going on, I want to go to the school and have a say. At public schools, there's a chance they could ignore you. They might listen to you, but they might not. At a private school, when you put money on the table, they are listening to you. They guarantee to listen to you because you put money on the table. And if they don't listen, you take your money off the table and you take your money elsewhere. That's how business works. Public school, you're not putting any money on the table. So if they want to ignore you, they can. Doesn't mean they will, but they can. And I don't even like them having the option of ignoring me. That's the point. Someone said private school costs more money, so those without money get no education. No, you get education. Straw man question, dude. You go to public school. It's free. Free, quote unquote. Gandalf said, can I do an energy specific stream? What do you mean by that? Said, don't have to send to public school. Go private if you got money. You damn right, dude. You damn right. If you got money, you send your kids to a private school. If that's what you want to do. People with money send their kids to places that cost money. You know why? Because they got money. All right, money ain't everything, but it's connected to everything. That's how it works. If you don't have money, you don't have as many options. That's just life. Welcome to life. Does any of you didn't know that? The more money you have, the more options you have. That doesn't mean money is everything, but it does mean if you want access to everything, it's going to cost you. I didn't think this was news to anybody. Saying oil versus nuclear versus renewable. No, I haven't thought about that enough, Gandalf, to do a live stream on it. But if I get interested enough, then I might. But if I don't get interested enough, Gandalf, then I will never talk about that. So you just wait. I might talk about that, but I might not. Said, you're arguing against public school this whole time. Yes, I am. That doesn't mean public school is necessarily bad, but if I have a choice as a parent, I'd rather send my kid to a private school that I'm paying for, or homeschool my kid and do it my way, 100% my way. Those are the options that I see. I'm a product of public schools. I went to public school K through 12. Then I went to a state school for college. And I guess you could call me a success story of the public school, system. My sister went to public schools as well. I say I'm a product of a two-parent household more than I'm a product of the public school system. I became successful despite my public school education, not because of it. I'm not arguing against it. I'm telling you the pros and cons of both sides. I'm not vehemently against public schools as a general idea. Again, I went to a public school, so how could I be that much against it? It didn't destroy me, but I had two parents at home. That's why I became who I became, because of my parents, not because of the school. Yeah, Adam, I get it. It's a conservative and not a common sense. That's why your talking points are very much in line to it. I never even thought of my points being conservative. So I was talking to somebody. He's a basketball player, as a matter of fact. He said, Dre, I appreciate the fact that you are willing to put conservative talking points out there publicly. And it's the first time anyone had ever connected my speech to conservatism. This is like 2021. No one had ever called what I was doing conservative before that. But now I get that almost every day. But I never consider myself conservative. I just tell people how I see things. And people assume it to be conservative. I say, if I'm trying to be logical and objective and you consider that conservative, what does that say about the liberals? That's the question I always ask. What does it say about the liberals if being logical and objective makes you conservative? Megan said, people can't understand education not only in school, you teach at home too. The teaching at home is more important than the teaching in school. It's more important. Troy said, two-parent household played the largest role in your success. Absolutely. Two-parent household is the reason I became who I became. If you ask me, I would never say because of the schools that I went to. No, it's because I had two parents at home, period. Farmer said, you can buy an entire year curriculum for under $1,200. You can use it for multiple kids. Yes, exactly. Adam said, my parents was the same as yours. They kept keep me in line. Yes, exactly. That's what they're supposed to do. That's the job of parent. That's the point of parenting. I tell parents, if your kid fails in school, it's because of you. It's not because of the school. It's not because of the teacher. It's because of you. You're the parent. So whatever happens to your kid is your responsibility. Even if it's not your fault, it is your responsibility. Up through they get old enough and they move out and they pay their own bills. Now they do what they want to do. They do something crazy after they move out. That's not on you. If they do something crazy while they still live under your roof. That's on you. That's the way I see it as parents. It's black and white. No exceptions. Doesn't mean your kid might not do something crazy that you told them not to do, but that's why you have punishment, you know. That's why you ground your kids and take their phone away or whatever they do to kids these days. All that said, folks, let's wrap this one up. We made it without a bathroom break today, so that's great. I do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, I think we're going to talk about economics tomorrow, assuming nothing bumps it off the docket. So I think tomorrow we're going to talk economics. The first 3 laws of economics, we're going to break them down, what they mean and how they apply to you. It dovetails perfectly what we talked about here when we talk about private schools and put money on the table. Then we're going to talk about platforming. Should everybody get platformed? If someone has some really bad ideas, bad information, misinformation, disinformation, HATE speech, do they deserve a platform? They deserve a chance to say what they want to say and speak their piece. We're going to talk about that, and we'll see what else. Whatever comes up in the news. Really, I just do current events, whatever's happening. This is a current event. So whatever is current event, whatever is, what's the word? Somebody text me. So just checking what's going on. Whatever I see in the news. Maybe something happens today. I decide to talk about that tomorrow. So you never know what you're going to get. This live stream is like Forrest Gump. All right, one thing you do know you're going to get is I'm going to give you value. I'm going to try to speak as objectively and as logically as possible. Doesn't mean you'll agree with me. You may not agree with my logic. You may not agree with my objectivity. But I am trying. My aim is always to be as logical and as objective as possible. I'm open to disagreement. You disagree, you're free to disagree. Don't troll me, but you can disagree in the comments, and I will engage with those who do. And what else? Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Make sure you follow me on YouTube. My YouTube link is in my profile on TikTok. So as soon as this live ends, just click on the link in my profile. You'll see my YouTube. You'll see my Instagram. Follow me in both places just in case TikTok decides to expel me from the school. Then I will let you know that I got another account. I will open up I got another TikTok account already. I got a backup account. I never use it, but I do have a backup. So in case that happens, I'll still go live on TikTok. It'll just be another account I got to build up. I don't want to lose this one because I built this one up over the last 7 months. So hopefully we don't have to do that. But it's inevitable. Inevitably, I'm going to say something. They're going to kick me off. So I'm already telling you this is going to happen. They're going to kick me off. Eventually, I'm going to do something. And nothing we can do about it. All right, that's the inevitable. Good news is my business is not based on TikTok. I like TikTok. My business is not based on TikTok. So if they kick me off, and I'll come back. That's what it is, everybody. Make sure, again, YouTube, Instagram. The links are in my profile on TikTok. If you want to learn more about me and get more of my stuff outside of social media, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com or workonmygame.com. Get on my email list for free. I write more than I talk. So I actually send out emails every single day, 7 days a week. You want to get on my email list? It's free. Just go to workonmygame.com. That link should be in my bio on TikTok. Let me check on my phone. I think it's in my bio on TikTok. Is it? No, it's not. So workonmygame.com to get my emails. If you send a DM, my assistant does watch the DM. So if you ask a question in DMs, my assistant will respond to you and point you in the proper direction. And now I need to go to the bathroom. So everybody have a great rest of your Tuesday. I will see you all tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern. We are out of here. Thank you, Carla, for moderating and all the people in here consistently. I will see you all tomorrow, 8 a.m. Have a great day. Work on your game.